This is the powerful way to finally break free from a narcissist. Have you ever felt like you've walked away from someone, but somehow they still live inside your mind? Even after the relationship ends, you catch yourself replaying old conversations, questioning your decisions, or wondering if things could have turned out differently. You may know, logically, that leaving was the healthiest choice, yet emotionally it feels as though invisible chains are still holding you in place. If you've experienced this, you're far from alone. Psychologists have long recognized that recovery from emotionally manipulative relationships is not simply about ending contact. It is about untangling the psychological bond that formed beneath the surface. And today, we're going to explore the powerful path that helps so many people finally reclaim their freedom. One of the greatest misunderstandings about narcissistic relationships is believing that the hardest part is leaving. In reality, many survivors discover that walking away is only the beginning. The deeper challenge comes afterward, when your nervous system continues reacting as though the relationship is still happening. According to Dr. Ramani Durvasula, relationships involving strong narcissistic traits often create cycles of idealization, confusion, criticism, and intermittent affection that keep the brain emotionally invested long after the relationship has ended. This isn't a sign of weakness. It's the result of powerful psychological conditioning that gradually teaches your mind to associate emotional unpredictability with attachment. Think about how these relationships often begin. In the early stages, everything may feel extraordinary. You feel deeply understood, intensely appreciated, and emotionally connected in ways you've rarely experienced before. That experience can create what psychologists call an intense attachment bond. But when warmth suddenly turns into criticism, withdrawal, or emotional inconsistency, your brain doesn't simply stop caring. Instead, it works even harder to recover the closeness that once existed. The unpredictable nature of the relationship keeps hope alive, even when the relationship itself becomes increasingly painful. This pattern is closely connected to what trauma specialists describe as intermittent reinforcement, when affection, approval, and rejection alternate unpredictably. The brain begins searching constantly for the next moment of emotional relief. The uncertainty itself strengthens the attachment. This is one reason survivors often blame themselves after leaving. They wonder why they still miss someone who repeatedly hurt them. The answer isn't that they wanted pain. It is that their nervous system became conditioned to seek resolution from the very source of the distress. As Dr. David Hawkins often emphasized in his discussions about emotional healing, people frequently remain trapped not because they lack intelligence, but because unresolved emotional patterns continue operating beneath conscious awareness. When someone repeatedly questions your worth, shifts blame, or makes you responsible for their emotional state, you gradually begin measuring your value through their reactions instead of your own internal sense of self. Over time, this creates a painful cycle where your emotional stability depends on someone else's unpredictable behavior. This is why breaking free requires much more than physical distance. Physical separation removes the person, but emotional freedom requires rebuilding your relationship with yourself. Many survivors continue carrying the narcissist's voice long after the relationship ends. They second-guess their decisions, criticize themselves harshly, apologize unnecessarily, or feel guilty whenever they prioritize their own needs. The external relationship may be over, but the internal dialogue continues. Psychologists explain that one of the first powerful steps toward healing is recognizing that your emotional reactions make sense. Confusion, grief, longing, anger, and even moments of missing the relationship do not mean you made the wrong decision. They simply reflect the way the human brain processes prolonged emotional inconsistency. Understanding this often brings tremendous relief because it removes the shame many survivors carry. In the middle of this healing journey, it becomes important to understand narcissistic traits from an educational perspective rather than a judgmental one. Individuals who display strong narcissistic traits often rely heavily on external validation, admiration, or control to regulate their emotions. According to Dr. Ramani, these patterns frequently reflect an unstable internal sense of self that depends on outside reinforcement. This doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it helps explain why attempts to change, rescue, or convince the other person often leave survivors emotionally exhausted. The relationship becomes centered around managing one person's emotional needs while the other's needs slowly disappear. This realization can be heartbreaking because many survivors genuinely believed that if they loved harder, communicated better, or sacrificed more, things would improve. Yet, psychologists consistently point out that healthy relationships require mutual accountability. One person cannot sustain emotional health for two people. When responsibility becomes one-sided, emotional burnout is almost inevitable. So what does real freedom actually look like? The first step is reclaiming your reality. Emotional manipulation often leaves people doubting their own memory, instincts, and perceptions. Keeping a journal can become a powerful grounding tool. Writing down conversations, emotional experiences, and personal observations helps reconnect you with objective reality instead of the version someone else tried to convince you was true. This simple practice gradually rebuilds trust in your own mind. The second step is allowing yourself to grieve honestly. Many people rush their healing because they feel embarrassed about how deeply the relationship affected them. But grief is not evidence that you should return. Grief simply reflects the loss of what you hoped the relationship could become. Healing begins when you allow yourself to mourn not only the relationship itself, but also the future you imagine together. The third step involves strengthening your boundaries. Healthy boundaries are not walls designed to punish others. They are expressions of self-respect. They communicate what behavior you will accept and what behavior you will no longer tolerate. As many therapists explain, boundaries are not about controlling someone else's actions. They are about deciding how you will respond when those actions violate your emotional well-being. This is often where survivors encounter unexpected discomfort. Saying no may trigger guilt. Maintaining distance may create anxiety. Ignoring manipulative messages may feel emotionally unnatural at first. Trauma psychologists explain that this discomfort is normal because your nervous system is adapting to healthier patterns. The anxiety doesn't mean your boundaries are wrong. It often means they're working. Another essential part of healing is rebuilding an identity separate from the relationship. During emotionally controlling dynamics, many people gradually abandon hobbies, friendships, dreams, or personal interests in order to keep the peace. Recovery means rediscovering those forgotten parts of yourself. Spend time with supportive people. Learn new skills. Return to activities that once brought you joy. Every positive experience reminds your brain that life exists beyond survival. Darren McGee often writes about the importance of mindfulness and self-compassion during difficult emotional transitions. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" try asking, "What can I learn about myself through this experience?" This subtle shift transforms healing from a story about loss into a story about growth. You begin focusing less on understanding the narcissist and more on understanding yourself. One of the most transformative moments arrives when you stop waiting for closure from the person who created the confusion. Many survivors spend years hoping for an apology, accountability, or recognition of the pain they experienced. While those things may happen occasionally, psychologists remind us that genuine closure often comes from within. It comes from accepting that your healing no longer depends on someone else's awareness or approval. As your confidence grows, something remarkable begins to happen. Situations that once triggered overwhelming anxiety become easier to navigate. You stop feeling compelled to explain yourself to people who refuse to understand. You become more comfortable with silence. You trust your instincts more quickly. The emotional storms become shorter. The self-doubt becomes quieter. Little by little, you begin recognizing yourself again. Perhaps the most powerful way to finally break free from a narcissist is realizing that your life no longer has to revolve around their behavior, whether they apologize or don't, whether they move on or don't, whether they change or don't. Your future belongs to you. Your peace does not require their permission. That is real freedom. It is waking up without immediately thinking about them. It is making decisions based on your values instead of your fears. It is believing your own reality without constantly seeking someone else's validation. It is discovering that the strength you spent years searching for was quietly growing inside you all along. If this message resonated with you, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who may be walking through a similar journey. And we'd love to hear from you in the comments. What has been the most important lesson you've learned about protecting your emotional well-being? Remember this as you continue your healing journey. Clarity is the first form of freedom. Every boundary you keep, every truth you honor, and every step you take toward your own emotional health is a powerful act of reclaiming your life. No matter how long you've carried confusion, fear, or self-doubt, healing is possible. You are stronger than you realize. You are worthy of healthy love. And most importantly, you are not alone.